My name's Taylor Rowan, and this is Confident Risks. In the last few episodes, we've really talked to the people who have that idea that want to get started in business. Today, we're going to talk to the group of people who maybe have that entrepreneurial mindset, but don't really know what they want to start a business with yet. If that's you, stay tuned. So in this episode, as I stated, we're going to talk to the group of people who have the entrepreneurial mindset, but really don't have that idea yet to move forward with. They don't know what to build confidence in. Maybe they're confident in themselves and they know that they want to start something, but at the same time, they don't have that idea yet. And they think through that multiple times. What is it that I could start on? And maybe they deter themselves because they can't think of that idea. They want to be in business, but they can't think of what it actually is they want to do. And we've been hinting at the idea the past few weeks of what is front door business versus backdoor business, and how does that relate to what we're talking about today? The reason it relates so well is this, is when we think of ideas and we try to think of something that we want to start in a business aspect, we think to ourselves like, man, I got to invent the wheel basically, or I've got to invent this new idea that's really going to hit home for the majority of the population. So we come up with ideas, maybe we're sitting around with our friends and we say, oh man, this would be such a good idea if we just could do this and this and this. And then we talk about, oh, how we'd be a millionaire if we could just do that. And so we have this preconceived notion in our head that in order to be successful, we have to reinvent something or we have to invent something new. And it couldn't be further from the truth. We sit here and we think about maybe the most popular businesses, and the ones that come to mind right off the bat are, your Nikes, your Apples, Google, McDonald's. You think of all of these really high profile restaurants. And at the end of the day, those restaurants make up a very small portion of the overall businesses. And if we were to put all of the business collectively, let's say throughout the world, into 100 businesses, let's just say we took all of the businesses in the world and put them into 100, they make up less than 0.001% of all businesses out there. What it boils down to is a majority of the businesses out there that are successful are the businesses that are coming through the back doors of most businesses, through the back doors of the restaurants, the back doors of the Apples, of the Googles, the people who are supplying to those companies. I can remember when I was little, we'd have Thanksgiving on Thursday. We'd always go to my grandparents' house. I knew that if I went with my mom and grandma the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday shopping, that there was a new fit that was going to be on me, whether it's a shirt, shorts, shoes. And I just was so excited the day after to drive with them. We were in Alabama every Thanksgiving, and we'd drive down to Birmingham from Coleman, Alabama. And it was a 45-minute drive. And I can remember we'd be driving down, and all the kids and my mom and grandma, we were so excited to go down there to go shopping. And my dad was always kind of the one, he was the one driving in the front seat, but never was really the most excited. And I didn't really realize that until I got older on the reasoning. And I can now relate to, you get closer to the holiday season and you're driving to the mall and the traffic just starts backing up the closer and closer you get to the mall. And it gets to the point where everyone else maybe is having a good time in there, but as a driver, you're sitting there and you're at the red light maybe 3 times in a row. People can't get into the parking lot. People can't find parking spots. People are trying to drop people off in the middle of the parking lot. It's just absolute chaos when you get to the mall. And I can remember as a kid, my dad finally just getting so frustrated. Okay, I'm just going to drop you off up front. So he goes in, drops us off up front, and then we'd go straight into the mall, and we didn't realize the chaos that he was going through in the parking lot still. So maybe 30 minutes later, he finally shows up. We're halfway around the mall already. He's found a parking spot. And the reason why I bring that up is this. Nowadays, when I go to the mall with my family as we get closer to the holiday season, the first instinct is you want to go to the front door of the mall. You're driving in, everyone's coming to the front, you want to drive to the front door. But in reality, if we just back up and maybe we drive around, and this is back when Sears was a thing, God rest their soul, but you go to the Sears maybe and you go out a little bit from Sears and you could find a parking spot. So we find this parking spot that's maybe not right up front, but it's a lot closer than a parking spot at the front of the mall. Why is that? It's because we're willing to go around to the back and not go through the main entrance. Now, think about it. When you go into the mall, you're still going to do a 360 all the way around the top floor. You're going to go down to the first floor. You're going to do another 360. So you're always going to end up back at your car. So why do we have to go through the front door? It's because it's what everyone else does. We know it as the front entrance, and that's where we think we have to go. For some of you, you could probably relate to this at your house. You're thinking about the front door. It's one that you rarely use. Why? It's because you go into your garage, you get out of your car, and maybe you walk through the garage door. That is how we have to start thinking of things when it comes to business. Isn't necessarily the, oh, this is what relates to the everyday general public. It's more or less, what's the idea that we could find that's going to allow us to supply items to those businesses? We think back to the smartphone boom. When smartphones first became a thing, everyone wanted to develop the app that was going to be the most popular. But in reality, who was it that made money during that time? It was Gorilla Glass. It was people who were actually making covers for the phone, who were making cases for phones. Because yes, the idea was everyone wanted to make an app, but at the same time, an easy solution was, well, if everyone's going to have smartphones, why don't we start creating an idea that's going to protect those smartphones? And those are the people who really made a boom. Yes, there was people who made booms during the app process and making apps, but Gorilla Glass and all these other phone covers and cases that came about had a boom as well. There's multiple different stories that we can talk about in this. And another one would be for myself. I love going to play golf. I'll tee off. Most of the time I'm outside the fairway or in the woods. And my daughter loves going with me sometimes, and she's pretty good at golf. But what she really likes going for is for the ball hunt. It's like an Easter egg hunt for her. She's able to go, I'll hit a ball, and she's able to go and look along the lake or look along the fairways, and sometimes she'll find one or two balls. But if she's golfing with me, she knows Dad's going to end up in the woods to the right or the water to the left, and she's going to have a lot more fun time finding all of these balls that are in the woods where most people don't go. It's because most people who are staying in the fairway, there's really not that many balls to find. But when you're off into the woods on the side, you're in the lakes, now you can find this plethora of golf balls. And that's how my daughter views it. She sees it as a time where she can go and she can find golf balls. And these golf balls sometimes are $2 to $5, something I would never think about. But for her, she finds enough golf balls to supply me for a year, which saves me, I don't know, $500 or so in golf balls. A lot of you are thinking that's a lot. I'm not the best. But it's changing the mindset of, okay, I'm there to golf. She now knows that she can go there and she can find golf balls and have that hunt the whole time. It's how do we view the situation we're going to wrap this together? How do we view the everyday business, and what are we really looking for? Are we looking to reinvent the wheel or to come up with this next new item that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of process? Not saying you can't do that. But if it's business that we're looking to get into, if it's something that we're looking to start on our own, we have to start changing our mindset. It's not the front door that we need to go into. A lot of the times it's that side door that we need to be finding. It's what are the areas, what are the businesses that I can take on right now that it's going to allow me to invest time, invest effort, get confidence built up in so that I can start. Because when you can start something, as I talked about last week, as you can start something and start learning from your mistakes on a smaller scale, you're going to be much more successful later down the road when you figure that out on a smaller scale. The best example that I can think of this is when I'm talking to a lot of my friends or people who are around me, and we talk about startup businesses, and I bring up this idea of, okay, let's think of a backdoor business that we can start instead of a front door. Well, the best backdoor business is porta potties. That is one that most people think about and like, there's no way I'm ever going to start up a porta potty business. And I think about a porta potty business. Yes, most people think about, I'm not going to go clean up somebody else's bowel movements and crap and pee all over the ground. Yes, that's one way to think about it, but also think of it this way. How many other people out there are wanting to start a porta potty business? Not many. That is a business startup right away that I'm not saying is an easy one to do for those of you who out there maybe have done that. I'm not saying that's an easy startup to do, but those are the type of areas that we need to start looking into. That for myself, it was shipping containers, on-site storage. How can I get on-site storage to customers? Or dumpsters, porta potties. Those are three right there that kind of go hand in hand. What are the ideas that we can start that maybe supply contractors? They supply new startup businesses. They supply to businesses who are maybe doing remodels. Those are things that are always going to happen. To use last week's example, we talk about the hairstylist who's thinking, man, I can't really compete as much in this business of all of these hairstylists. Well, yeah, but now we're thinking about how can we, if there's so many people in the hairstyle industry, how can we make it so that we can develop hairstylists, so that we can actually bring them into our school? Those are the ways that we need to start thinking about startup businesses. Not necessarily the big idea that's going to change the world or that's going to change an invention that's going to change how we look at things, but it's what are the things that we can do right now where there's a demand that we can go in and we can help supply those companies. Some of the most successful people that I've met in life have had businesses or startups that I had never even thought of before. They were such niche markets. And this is because they tend to go down those roads that are less traveled. We think about an interstate through the middle of the US, which everybody travels on. But then you get off on each one of these exits and you realize that each one of these towns really has something that really they cater around, or really that they all gather around. Maybe it's a lake that they have in the area, or maybe it's a historic site that they have. There's something as you get into these little cities that you realize that this whole community has this thing that they really do collaborate around, or they really can bring as a center point to everyone in that town. The same thing happens on the business front. Think about how many times maybe you create or you get into a new hobby. Let's say it's dirt biking. You've never had a dirt bike, you've never had a motorcycle, and all of a sudden you have a dirt bike or a motorcycle, and you start realizing there's communities of people who really come around that thing. Maybe it's surfing. Maybe it's one of those things you find out, you start surfing a little bit and you find out there's this community and there's these little nuances and items you didn't even know about. That's the best way to think about a startup business. And I do this quite often. And here's something I can challenge you guys with is find that thing in your office or in your room that you look at and do research on it. Maybe it's the most simplest thing. Maybe it's a plant that's in the corner that's artificial. Start doing research down that path. Okay, artificial plants. Who are the companies that make these? What's the process to do it? And you'll start finding yourself down these rabbit holes of, I had no idea this was even a thing. Maybe it's a hand sanitizer. I'm looking at things here in my office now. Maybe it's stickers. Maybe it's plastic caps. Whatever it is, if you start doing research on those items, you're going to find these worlds that you had no idea even existed. I can think back to when I started my business and when I was doing shipping containers, I was thinking to myself, man, if there was only an association or a group that met on shipping containers, and that is a far fetch. Trust me. I mean, I was saying to myself, man, that is a far fetch, but I did the quick search. And sure enough, NPSA, National Portable Storage Association, there was an association who met every single year, multiple times a year, actually, all around shipping containers. This association met for most people who had portable storage units, just like maybe a pod or a shipping container, and they started businesses for that. This was an association I was able to go to, and I started getting down this rabbit hole, one of those things where I realized, man, there is actually a group of people who focus on this only. And getting into that group, there was things that I was able to learn that it was just like, I couldn't even believe that they were out there. That's how it is for most items. And I'm going to say this, and this might be a big surprise to most of you, but I work with, 10 or 15 consistently different companies who come in through our back door that supply us goods. And there has been multiple times, and this is kind of that realist thing that we're getting into right now, which is there has been multiple times where you look at a business and you think to yourself, man, they've got it together. And you start really digging in and talking to them a little more, and they don't. Here's encouragement for everybody who's watching who really has this idea and they want to start off, or maybe they don't have the idea and they want to start out. Artificial intelligence, AI, they are changing the game in business. There are a lot of businesses out there now who have been in the game for 15, 20 years, 25, maybe even longer, who have had a strategic way of doing something for a very, very, very long time. Here's what's happening though. There's a curve. There's this curve that happens as we start developing and we become more technologically advanced. We have this tech curve that's doing one of these numbers. It's no longer going at a steady pace anymore. It is dramatically going up, which means that it's harder and harder for businesses who have done things the same way for such a long time. It's very hard for them to keep up now. The best analogy I can think of here, it's like a cruise ship. Think about a cruise ship. If they're on a straight line and they have to turn, think of the Titanic. It takes a lot for that company to have to turn the bigger and bigger they are. And you have certain tech companies who maybe can turn a little bit faster, but for the majority of these larger businesses, when there has to be a pivot or a change that happens, it's like a large cruise ship. It's so big, maybe the company has thousands of people and they have to make a pivot. It's very hard for that company to make a pivot. For startup businesses, though, think about that little speedboat that's starting out. Yeah, maybe they can't make through the weather of those large storms, but they can turn quickly. If there's a storm ahead, they can make a quick pivot. If there's something coming, they can make a quick pivot if they have to. They can do a 180 if they need to. They have a lot more maneuverability. That's what's happening in the business world today. There are a lot of changes that are happening, and we're experiencing them ourselves, which are things that we have to start adapting to. It is a great time to get into the business front now, especially if you're able to start utilizing the AI tools, if you're able to start thinking a little bit more freely and a little bit more less traditional, more proactive on the technological front, there are a lot of opportunities out there. There are a lot of businesses who are starting to fall behind because they want to keep things old school. If there was ever a time to start a business up, this is all my opinion. Say all the comments that you want about this, but in my opinion, this is a fantastic time to bring fresh minds into the industry. How can we change the personification? How can we change the outlook and the view on how things have been done traditionally to now change them a little bit more? I mean, I think the most right now about the medical industry. I mean, I can take now my lab results from my blood test, put them into AI, and it gives me the same, if not more experienced answer than doctors. Think about that for a second. If we really let that sink in, think about how that relates to other industries now. I know it has tremendously for my industry in the fire. I'm working with businesses who maybe have been doing the same thing traditionally for a long time. I'm going to let them keep doing stuff their way. With the young minds and people that we have, we're starting to change and steer how that outlook looks. There's a lot of businesses that need to be doing that. And there's a lot of businesses that could be coming through the back door helping these larger businesses. That can be helping even as like a subcontractor, somebody who comes into these businesses who've been doing something a certain way, who need help with their social media, who need help with their AI, who need help with a lot of things that are so easy to come about now, but people are so used to doing something old school. There are opportunities now, especially for the younger generation, to come into these larger businesses and help them. And you think as a younger person, well, how can I help this business who's been doing something for so long? Think about how you help your parents with their smartphones sometime. There are so many businesses out there who still maybe have trouble with their smartphone, but yet they're doing multiple millions of dollars of business a year. Think about what they could be doing if they had fresh minds that were coming in. My encouragement right now, especially if you're looking to get into a startup as a younger person, is go in and help those businesses. The things that are so easy for you are things that younger generations can help tremendously with these larger companies. So I want to wrap all of this together because I went a lot of different places there. Here's what it boils down to. We have to get ourselves out of the mindset of reinventing the wheel or coming up with that next Fortune 500 company. We have to start thinking within our means. How can we get into a better parking spot to get into the mall right off the bat? Maybe we don't go straight to the front door. Maybe we're going to the side door. Maybe we're getting into the mall. We're still doing the same loop, but we're getting into a spot where we can get in quicker. That's how we have to start looking at businesses. What are the opportunities? Here's my encouragement right now to everybody who's watching, who wants to come up with the idea, who wants to have that thing that they can jump into. Maybe they got the personality to start their own business. Maybe they got the drive to start their own business, but they don't know what to do yet. Here is the best thing that I can tell you guys. Go into your house today. Find a couple of products that you have that are useful products and figure out how those are made. Figure out what the process is. Figure out who some of the suppliers are to get these things made. And then start looking at some of the tooling that it takes to build these items. Get yourself down rabbit holes on items that maybe don't interest you. What interests you though? What makes you want to be a business owner? It's the process of being on your own. It's doing something on your own. It's maybe the creation of a company that you're guiding. That's the ultimate goal. And if you're that person who's looking for something to do, they want to have that product they can get into, they want to get in that niche market, you have to take yourself off the main interstate. You have to get off an exit or two and start doing some research in these smaller communities and figure out what are the items that I don't know about? What are the communities that I don't know about? As you do that and you start making yourself a little bit more coerced or making yourself a little bit more knowledgeable in these smaller products, you're going to start realizing, man, there's opportunities out there that I didn't even know existed. But it takes doing a little bit of research off the bat. You're laying in your bed at night, you're scrolling Facebook, you're scrolling Instagram, you're scrolling whatever it is, unless you're looking for this podcast, then that's a good way to do it. But maybe you're just scrolling aimlessly at something. Instead of doing that, jump on, start taking yourself down rabbit holes of these items or of these processes that you didn't know were out there. As you start doing that, you're going to start getting yourself down these rabbit holes that are going to allow you to start thinking a little bit differently than the Fortune 500 companies. Now you're starting to think about the little niches, the things that you know that you can get into quickly, maybe very cost effectively, and start providing services for. The last and final note on this. Here's what you have to be ready for. And I was just talking to our video guy, Kevin, about this. And I took a quick pause there to start thinking about this a little bit more. And he brought in a great conversation piece. And here's a great example of that. So Kevin, our video guy, just last year started thinking to himself with the graduation. He does all the filming for the graduations and all the different school districts around this area. And his thought was, well, instead of just filming this and have it as a video, why don't we make it so we can do it live? So he goes on and starts doing the research. How can I find this live streaming apparatus? And graduation was 2 days after this. So he goes on, he finds this live stream apparatus. He buys it, he overnights it to himself, and then he starts videoing and live streaming the graduation. And of course, it's about $5-10 to log on, and he makes $5,000 for the weekend. Why was he able to do that? It's because he was prepared. We talked about this an episode or two ago. We talk about being prepared, putting yourself in situations that you have to succeed in. So as you start going down these rabbit holes and you're starting to look at these different items that are out there that maybe you didn't know were there, you have to be prepared to pull the trigger. That is the biggest piece of advice that I can give you guys, is that it goes back to episode 1. You can look and look and look for that car. You can look and look and look for the sale. The question is, when you do find that thing and you start doing the research on it and you start looking into it, are you willing to pull the trigger and put confidence in yourself that you're making the right decision? That's what all of this boils down to. It's knowing and having confidence in yourself. If you want to start a business, if you truly want to start a business and you truly want to move into working for yourself, you have to be willing to pull the trigger. Just like Kevin in the video analogy we just used. This may have been a $1,500, $2,000 piece of equipment, but he pulled the trigger because he saw the opportunity. He knew that the opportunity was going to be there. Why did he know that? Because he knew for himself he would like to have some of his family members watch his kids' graduation. So he pulled the trigger and he did it. And he was able to be profitable off that. And he got himself into a new niche. You have to be willing to pull the trigger when the opportunity arises. You go down these rabbit holes, you start looking side to side, left to right, starting to think to yourself, man, what are the other opportunities that are out there? When you find it, you have to jump on it. You have to be willing to do the research. You have to look into it, figure out what's in your area. But when you do find it, you have to pull the trigger. So in closing, guys, hopefully you're able to take something from today and apply it to your everyday life. Doesn't necessarily have to be just in the business industry. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's the business that you're currently in now, the position that you have. How can you maybe start looking at things a little bit differently? If you were able to do that, please hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you have comments and you have ideas of things you'd love to hear us talk about, please put it down below. But until next time, stay sharp, stay resilient.